Hello, this is Dr. Stark, and this is a screencast providing you with some additional information to help you complete your homework assignments due on Monday, October 14th. Can you believe that's week 4 already? So you'll notice the announcement in there that there's 3 assignments this week, and I highly suggest you don't wait until Sunday evening to sit down to try and start working on this, especially if you have to work on Monday. So what they were going to do here is that you can click right here on the course link, and it will take you to the week 4 folder. The first section is the class objectives. So we have a video on egg and sperm donation, and it looks at this particular process from both a personal and a professional level. So we're going to talk about that in class. We'll also be talking about your first hot topic called the mysterious blogger, and there'll be some additional questions on the topic that we will be talking about in class. The resources folder has information in here for the PowerPoints for both chapters 4 and 5. And let me just say, the suggestion I have here is that these chapters are pretty heavy. I understand that the chapters are pretty heavy. My goal for you is why do we have such a complex book? Well, because ethics is a very complex topic. And as I've mentioned before, that it's based on theory. The author's trying to give you a good, rich background when it comes to ethics, but you can see that the way I've assigned the homework readings and then the assignments that correlate with it is I'm allowing you to pick 3 concepts that really ring and resonate with you, something that speaks to you. So a good practice would be to take a look at the few slides for each chapter before you look at the chapter, so you kind of get a preview or an overview. Then you can go back, look at the chapter, find your concepts, and read more deeply about those particular concepts. Last week I mentioned there was a small extra credit opportunity. You'll see that there's an extra credit opportunity in here too. So since our hot topic simulation, one of our homework assignments, is about blogging, your extra credit opportunity is to find a business blog. And when you log on to that blog, type a paragraph about what's trending or about what the topics are being talked about in that blog. Include the blog URL, and then in a few sentences just reflect on, have you ever looked at business blogs before? What purpose do they serve? And the blog that you were looking at, did it seem like it was written for employees or vendors or for customers? In other words, who were the stakeholders? So just a paragraph, the URL, and a reflection, less than a half a page. Print that out, bring a copy to class, and then that'll be worth 2 points extra credit on your attendance. So this handout on the discussion questions for the mysterious blogger, as I will pass that out in class, so you don't need to worry about that. This is the video or watch. You don't have to do that on your own. Again, that's a classroom assignment. Okay? So those are the resources for the folder, for the week I should say. And then a few people in class were saying, you know, they liked the original structure about assignments, so I made some duplications. So in this assignments folder, you'll see that the 3 assignments are your ethics in the news, journal 2. You completed 1 2 weeks ago. I had them all graded on Monday, anything that was submitted, so you had feedback on that. I've been at a conference all week, so I really won't have any downtime until Saturday to start looking at grading again. The Chapter 5 focus, and you did your Chapter 4 focus last week, and then your third item is your hot topic. So let's go ahead and click on this title to look more deeply at these assignments. So I've repeated the information here on the Chapter focus assignments. Again, there's a sample here. Well, first of all, one of the documents that I created that I gave you in your packet is this handout on workplace misconduct. So maybe you just don't know how to search for an article, or you're kind of stuck with a topic. Here's all sorts of things to think about that are ethical issues and dilemmas in business. So you can look up conflicts of interest. There's specific kinds of bribery, active bribery, passive bribery, several different kinds of fraud, privacy issues. You know, something might be important to you for the kind of industry that you're in. And according to this particular survey, you know, violations in safety, misuse of confidential records. So this handout is strictly to provide you with some background information if you are looking for a topic for your in the news article. So here's the assignment. Hopefully you looked at this 2 weeks ago when the first assignment was due. The reason why we're doing this is to raise awareness of business ethical dilemmas that are out and about and around us, to continue to work on improving our identification of the tensions in core values. Remember that you're looking at, on the horizontal axis, autonomy versus equality. One of the things that we mentioned in class is that if you talk about autonomy, you also have to talk about the opposite side, which is equality. So if you say, for example, the president of the company made this decision because it suited him best, that's autonomy. But who is it hurting? So you need to present the opposite side. So then you might want to continue that sentence by saying, and those actions actually hurt the majority of the employees or the vendors or the customers or the stockholders, whoever that might be. And the same thing with the vertical axis. They made the management team made the decision because they needed to cut budgets. That's a rationale, but in making that decision, they did not consider the impact on the people's personal lives and what that would do to their families and their communities. That would be the sensibility side. Okay, so make sure that you do both of those. Then you're going to be identifying multiple dilemmas. Almost everything that you're going to read will have offshoots of other dilemmas between other people. So just a bullet list of that. Identify the main dilemma that you see the article is about, and that's so important because then that helps you with identifying the tensions, coming up with the solutions. So here's the assignment with writing it up. A paragraph overview, bullet points, describe each dilemma. So don't just say bribery. Bribery is not going to get you points on this, but saying the fact that this business bribed the police department to overlook violations, that's the dilemma. The husband and wife working for a company when they have a no dating policy or something, that's a dilemma. Receiving gifts from customers over, the legal limit, that's a dilemma. And so those are your identifiers. Then you're going to identify your stakeholders. Who are the potential people, individuals, or groups that are going to be affected by the dilemma? So don't just say customers. You're going to say the customers because why? In a good way, in a bad way. The vendors, why? The employees, why? The management team, why? If they're closing a particular plant, it could be the neighborhood, it could be the community, it could be the country. So those are your stakeholders, tensions and core value. And then the last part where some people lost some points were the resolving the dilemma. So oftentimes your article will have a resolution of how the dilemma was solved. It's okay to go ahead and identify that. The second part is to identify what lens you feel that result or that solution came from, and then use that handout from the 4 ethical lenses. And if you're saying it's the results lens, use specific statements from the results lens that say, by them making this decision, it honors the fact that A, B, and C. And then the last item, besides having the article included, is that you need to have the source. So just like an MLA source, that includes everything being double-spaced, a hanging indent, the source being in italics, the proper date format in the source. If it's from the web, it'll say web, and your access date. Again, I cannot encourage you any more than I already do every week to go to the external links tab in Blackboard and click on the Purdue OWL website and become very familiar with MLA format. So your heading, double-spaced, title, header, all those kinds of things. You'll even notice that in Blackboard I have an example when you click on the In the News assignment where there is a screencast of how to use the Robert Morris databases. And then you can actually cite your source and the databases, and that will do it all for you. So that is how to use the databases right there. And the link tells you to go right here and submit that assignment. So you've got your In the News assignment. The chapter focus assignment, where you're picking 3 concepts from the chapter. Again, the heading is in MLA format. You're picking 3 topics that resonate with you. You write the topic. You define the topic according to the book. You know, it's not your own creative definition or words that describe that particular topic. And then you write application. So write concept, colon, and write out the concept that you're doing. Definition, colon, define that topic. And then third, application, colon, and write an application. You're picking 3 concepts from the chapter that make sense to you and write a personal application. You'll be doing this is your second one, you'll be doing this 6 times with an opportunity for a 7th for extra credit. And there is a sample in there as well. And then finally, the last thing is we're going to start the ethics game hot topic simulations. This is the problem. It's about blogging in a company. The issue is whether or not you should use the information that you got, which was basically illegal, to discipline the blogger and the hacker. How do you handle that? So there's going to be a series of pages. In total, there's 44. You're only going to complete the first simulation, just the mysterious blogger. Use the ethics coach. So when you're in there, it'll give you a page of information, and every time it's going to ask you to make some decisions, on the left-hand menu bar up at the top it says the ethics coach. A lot of times you'll find that to be very helpful. It will remind you what the stakeholder is. It will remind you what lens you should be viewing this from, which is very important. And then at the end of the simulation, around page 20-ish, you will be asked to write a memo. And there was an example of the memo, and I handed it out week 2. And just so that you have that information ahead of time. Why are you writing a memo? Because you need practice in business writing. This is a concise business memo. It'll ask you to choose your audience, a descriptive subject line. Remember, this could be a very large company, so you're not just going to say the blogger. That's not enough information. Be very specific. They're just asking you in number 3 for the background of the problem. Don't make any decisions here, just the background. The next is, what was the decision that you made? They're going to give you several options. You're going to narrow that down to your decision. Then you're going to say, why did you decide to do that? You always need to defend the decisions that you make in business. The last part I think is the most difficult, the forward-looking conclusion. These last few sentences is not thank you for your time, but it's rather how do you build a relationship with these people to avoid this from happening again. So thanks so much for working with us. I look forward to working with you again in the future. Maybe we can have some online training, some webinars, bring in a guest speaker, talk about this at our monthly meeting, have ongoing conversations in order to avoid these kinds of problems in the future. That's what I'm looking for in the forward-looking conclusion. So I hope that information helps you in order to get your homework done this week. Again, I'm at a conference all day on Friday, but then I'll be around Saturday and Sunday, and I look forward to hearing from you by email, by text, by phone. Have a good night.